Good morning. Whoa. How are y'all? Welcome to Wavemakers Women in Music 40 Plus. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Friday morning at Antone's Austin. Thank you, Antone's. My name is Amber Purley. I'm the co-founder and designer of Wavemakers. We're so excited for y'all to join us and be a part of this really important conversation. And it's truly wonderful to see this entire vision come to life. Thank you, Cassie Lemaire Events. Thank you to our partners for their support. And our panelists. We couldn't have done this without you. Thank you to all our ticket holders. A portion of ticket sales went to the Herizon Music Foundation and the Clifford Antone Foundation, and it's not too late to donate. Couple of notes for today. Our first panel begins at 10 a.m., panel 1, with our seasoned industry insiders. We will take a 5-minute intermission at 10:55 for coffee, Bloody Mary, or whatever you may. At 11, panel 2 begins with our incredibly talented musicians, and then a Q&A will follow with the audience from 12 to 12:30, and we really do encourage you to raise your hand and ask questions. Now I am so pleased to introduce the founder of Wavemakers, singer-songwriter, philanthropist, and the amazingly talented Lurleen Ladd. Give it up.
Thank you very much, Amber, and thank you all for being with us today, panelists, sponsors, and partners. A good place for me to start as to why I did this. Well, I guess it's, what do we do? Sometimes I say it's more important how we do it, and most importantly, why we do it. So to bring you up to my why, I'm going to give you a cocktail party anecdote and a dream. So I was just recently in New Orleans at a cocktail party. Wasn't the most scintillating cocktail party. Sorry, Dan, it was a bunch of dermatologists. And this woman sat down next to me, so random, could have been anybody. And she sat down and we did that thing. What do you do? I said, I'm a performing singer-songwriter. She said, oh my goodness. She lit up. She goes, I'm a lyricist. I said, amazing, wonderful. Gonna have this great conversation about music with her. And then she said, well, not really. My mother said it's just poetry. And that just was what she heard and carried with her. She was probably close to 40 years old with children of her own. And that reductive word that she heard, just, she carried it all along with her. And yet she told me, if I could do anything, I would sit in a studio all day and write music. It would make me so happy. She then proceeded to say for the next 20 minutes all the reasons why that was completely impossible. I was that woman with kids at home, with a big job somewhere else, and my heart belonged in music. It's where I wanted to be. It's what made me happy. And I say to that woman and to any of these women here that are thinking about embarking on a career in music, ignore the message of something that makes you that happy at your own peril. You have to connect for it and you have to fight for it. So that's my why. Now, I don't often share actual dreams I have at night. Not, sort of like the ones that, you go into your middle school classroom and you're naked and you have to take a test. Like that was not this particular dream. But it was just 2 nights ago, and I'm walking in a city street and it's dark, and I'm by myself and a little bit afraid. And I hear footsteps behind me, and I look back, and there is this beautiful woman, this beautiful black woman with long black braids. And as she comes up behind me, she starts, tap on my window, knock on my door. And I find myself singing with her. And we keep walking and walking and walking until we reach the place where we're right next to each other. And we've sung the whole song. And then we just turn and look at each other and start laughing, and we hug each other. So when I woke up that morning, I thought, that's it. That's my subconscious telling me the what, the how, and the why, which is connectedness. And that's really why I founded Wavemakers, to bring connection to women in music, specifically over 40 plus. So with all that in mind, I would like to bring on our first industry panelist. So please join me. So if you guys pick up your mics, they're live. So I think you're on. You're all on. So first I have to do a little extra thanking, and that is, and pick on just a little bit. So that fine gentleman at the end of the row is Mark Hallman, who is an absolute treasure in this city. He's also a dear friend of mine for over 2 decades. So just so that we know things are not all created equal, Mark, how much time did you spend figuring out what you were going to wear today?
I knew as soon as I was invited. I'm going to go with Man in Black, I said.
You carry it off well. You know, obviously, ladies, we do spend a lot more time thinking about other aspects of showing up, but I appreciate Mark. Mark jumped in to help us out. Patrick Clifford from Nashville wasn't able to make it to be with us today, and Mark has just a wonderful amount of experience in the Austin area as a producer, and I thank you so much, dear friend, for being with us today. So, easy questions first. Lest you might think that these folks, because they're on this side of the industry, don't have that connection to music, I want to ask. So how many of you, and tell me, was there piano lessons, guitar lessons? Did you sing in choir? Let me have it. What is it, Lisa? What was yours?
Oh, I'm in an all-female band called Guytown.
Guytown, very good. But as a child, what were you?
Oh, the trumpet.
The trumpet, love it. Okay, Janet.
I grew up in the 60s.
Yes.
So I had to be in music. But before that, I was a ballet dancer.
She was my dancer. Okay, Sharonda.
Baptist Church
Choir. All right. Mallory.
Ballet and piano lessons.
Oh, I'm so going to get you later. Okay, Thea.
Piano lessons and Church of Christ choir.
Very good.
Answer that.
All right, Mark, what was the first instrument, Mark?
Drums.
Drums. All right. Okay, and everybody here, based on those answers, you've all performed in front of an audience, yes? Okay, right. Which I think is important to note because sometimes when you're a musician and you're out there sweating and humping and trying to make something happen, sometimes you might think the people on the other side of the industry don't share a common experience. We're all connected with music, but they know, when you're sort of standing there and that perspiration is kind of running down the middle of your back, they know what that's like. And I think it's important to remember that and ground ourselves in that knowledge of connectedness. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right in. I'm not gonna make them do freshman orientation and tell you all about themselves. We're going to get there. So each of you, in what way in your career and experience working with women, specifically women and women 40 plus, what's been surprising about those interactions?
This was not on the list, of course.
How have you been surprised by women?
I don't know that I've been surprised. I run a audio engineering school for women, and I think I haven't been surprised by how cooperative everyone is and collaborative. I've been very surprised by how supportive the male allies have been.
Nice.
In the audio industry, and so I don't know if I've been too surprised by anything. Sorry, not a
That's
good
okay.
starting answer.
Take it away, Jan.
I feel the same way. I'm not surprised because I've always been a woman, but also worked with young girls and worked with families and music, and women have always been a part of that. I think the opportunities have changed considerably, and so I'm heartened by everyone in this room. But I think women are everything we know they are already, is that they're hard workers, they're multitaskers of the utmost, height of possibility, and we are always helping each other. And I think that is not a surprise, but it's a happy experience.
Very good.
I'm surprised, and I appreciate the story that you told to open up this morning. How many women aren't really living their dream and their true passion and have adopted roles of mom or caretaker or wife or partner that don't allow them to be the full expression of who they are. And that there's a lot of denial of self.
Right.
Even as we get older and we become more in charge of our own destiny. And so my hope for women is that we we support each other in forums like this so that we can wake up and become more alive and become more of who we are.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. I think, excuse me, that going along with that, you know, a lot of us have these stories or, you know, narratives that we can't achieve or that we have a cap on where we're allowed to go. I think the most surprising thing that I've found is that despite that narrative that we're all kind of sold, how many women I'm around that continue to achieve and sort of push that ceiling for themselves and the women around them.
Good. Okay.
Hi, I'm Thea, and everybody tells a lot of really great stories. I like looking at stories through statistics. And one of the things that is surprising to me is when I talk to professors at places like Berklee College of Music, and they say 45 to 50% of the students are female. Yet then I go out and I do the research about what's happening after college, and we've got women only representing 12% of major music festival headline acts, only getting booked 20% of the time in the venues, and then leaving the industry altogether at a much quicker rate. And where's that disconnect? And in my research, the reason why I opened up Herizon Music Foundation, I found that really nothing has changed a whole lot. I mean, there are some frontiers where we've moved forward, but we can do a lot better and haven't really changed since the 1970s. So that was what was surprising to me. What's great is that we're still out there and we're still making noise, and we need to hear women's voices now more than ever.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you, Thea. Mr. Holman.
What was the question again?
How have women surprised you in your working day to day at the studio?
Well, let me start by saying I started being in a band with a woman in the 70s when I was in my early 20s. So I was working for women immediately, and then I pretty much have ever since. So
Yes.
I'm not that surprised. Because it's not a man's world. We're in my little orbit. So I'm proud to say that it's pretty much it's been man and women and various other kinds of people, you know, all along. And saying that, I mean, especially at the studio, I have a studio called Cedar Creek Recording, and in that we have a lot of female interns, and we have some trans interns and some male interns. It's all over the map, and I'm not really that surprised, you know, to be honest with you. That's kind of what the takeaway from what I have to say is I'm not really that surprised.
Well, and I will say, so, you know, Mark and I obviously worked in the studio together, and right when I first started, and at that time, I mean, I was getting my first taste of what this looks like. And yeah, there was times I was the only woman there because that's the way it was, Mark. And but let me tell you, that man is an ally in this city. You've worked with so many female artists, and I walked in there and knew immediately that I was in good hands. You were respectful. You taught. You were willing to share, as opposed to some experiences in the studio. It's expensive. It's nerve-wracking, and it can feel like an assembly line. Mark, you never made me ever feel that way, and I can't thank you enough. And part of the reason why he's been so successful with so many of those female artists is because you're an ally and your demeanor, and I can't thank you enough, and the city owes you a debt for that development of those women. So thank you, Mark. So speaking about the engineering side, I'd like to get Lisa and Mark talking a little bit about what is coming on the production side and how women can have a bigger impact in the studio.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time actually in the audio engineering world because of how accessible it is nowadays. And also the record industry in general is changing so much that it's really wide open and leaving a lot of space for new business models. I don't know if y'all are aware of Spaceflight Records. They're a nonprofit record label here in town, and they're basically taking an artist and walking them through the entire process after they recorded, and the way that they're modeling themselves has nothing to do with the traditional business model in music, and they're letting the community support our artists.
Wow.
It's really great. Y'all check them out. And so that's really inspired me to think about what's missing and how we can kind of sidestep these old traditional routes that aren't really working for folks. I do some music project management, kind of stepping in for independent artists, like who don't have a record label but still need all that work done that a record label used to do.
Right.
And so I'm seeing a lot more of that happening in audio, where because of it being so DIY, people are just inventing new ways of doing it. And so I think we're going to see a pretty big shakeup in the recording industry in the next like 5-10 years. It's pretty exciting.
That's
Yeah.
encouraging. Mark, are you seeing women or people in general coming in? I mean, we're a little bit more savvy on the, what you can do, sort of swing at home, and like when they're coming in, are they a little further along in understanding about the process of recording?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, a lot of, and specifically women, are doing the research and really know what they want. They actually know how to get it as well. And a lot of times I'll just turn them back and say, well, you can do this without me. Let me just like give you some pointers, but yeah, you're on something right here. You get back to your music program and do this. You can do this on your own, and then come back with me, and together we'll come up with something.
Right.
So yeah,
it's helpful because I mean it is, hourly rates and blocking out time at a studio, paying your musicians, it just gets to be very costly. So if a lot of the pre-production work can be done on your own, you're going to end up saving time and saving money, and it's essential to that process.
It is.
So, absolutely. So I'm going to switch to Sharonda for a moment. So March is Women in Music Month, and Austin Women magazine just did an entire issue, and you're going to get a copy of that in your bag, on women in music. Sharonda, what prompted that focus for the issue, and what did you learn from that process?
I believe we are music, and I just have felt that since I was a child. And for me, music was a space or a place for healing and expression. And I'm a woman, and so I took the role of Austin Woman magazine in January of this year, and want to see some things that I really deeply believe in reflected in how we cover women in this community. And it struck me that Austin, since the 90s, has called itself the live music capital of the world, and some of the stats that you talked about have not changed for women. Even in the live music capital of the world, there's not equity represented there. And so because of South by and the big music presence, that focus that brings to our community, I felt like it was just a part of the responsibility of someone who's a journalist and who believes in the power of music. And our work at Austin Woman magazine is to empower women, that we specifically, intentionally focus on women. I think that Cy White is here. She's our brilliant, talented managing editor. She ran with the idea, and we wanted to focus on, I think, if you are not in the business, the only thing that you really see are the folks that are on stage, right? You don't understand the business side of it. There's a sound engineer, there's people doing all sorts of things to help you bring your product to life. And so we wanted to begin to show that there is an ecosystem, because that's what we're all about, is helping to build ecosystems for women in our community. There's an ecosystem for women in this industry, and how we might highlight those women and tell some of the cool stories that women are doing. So that's where it came from, is that I have a deep passion and love for music, and just love hanging out with anybody in the business. So
thank you so much for highlighting that. I'm going to move to Thea for a second. So Herizon Music Foundation had the first meetup right in Austin yesterday.
It was very exciting.
It was great. I loved it. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of came out of the meeting and some of the highlights?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So, first of all, we only had 30 spaces that we allowed for because we wanted it to be an open discussion, and we sold out. So that was pretty amazing. People want to talk, they want to share, and the most, I think, the thing that impressed me the most is that everyone was willing to share, and not only that, but jumping in and saying, how can I help? And what can I do? And they were giving themselves homework assignments. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, these are women who are hungry to get a community together, show each other support. I asked the question, how many of you feel like it's you against the world? And almost everyone
Every
raised
hand went
their
up.
hand.
Yes.
With regard to their career. So we realized that it's very important that we continue to have these kind of group discussions, and everybody was pretty on board about having a quarterly meeting.
Absolutely.
And bringing in experts in different areas to talk to them about the music business, because everyone, and whether you're a music producer or whether you're an audio engineer, many times you are the owner of your business. And it can be very lonely. And so having these community meetups and experts coming in and talking to you about different aspects of the business, I think is something that, you know, we're excited about and people were asking for.
Absolutely.
Is that what you got from it?
I did that, and Lisa saying that she was gonna, what did you say about venues when we talked about 80-20%? What did you say, Lisa? You shocked me. What'd you say?
What, did I boycott them?
That she boycotts venues. That what?
That don't include 50-50 or equal gender representation among all genders.
I was impressed with that. You'd really given it some thought, and I appreciated that honesty.
To be fair, I don't really go to many shows anymore anyway, so it hasn't been too big of a sacrifice.
Understood. Jan, I want to talk a little bit about your upcoming project and where sort of this music licensing thing could sort of be headed as we think about Web 3.0, Lord, and the metaverse. Your best 45-second explanation on that.
On any given day, those two terms would be boycotted in themselves because people are, poo-pooing the metaverse. But first of all, I've been in the music business since the 70s, in the early days of the record companies, where I was the only girl in the company.
Woman,
yeah. Well, I was a girl then. Anyway, yeah. So, I've seen all the things that have changed and all the things that have remained the same. But I think that probably everyone in this room is busting the doors down and the walls down and pushing the envelope. And so I, wormed my way and created a career. And one of my very first big jobs in the music business, beyond writing songs, with my jam box and my guitar, was being the music director for a girls gaming company back in the late 90s. And so I got involved in gaming and music. And I got the job as music director first, but then I ran all creative for that company. So I basically just allowed myself to write all the songs for all the games. So I got into...
love that.
Yeah, I kind of gave myself a job, so it's been like that all along, as there have been a lot of opportunities. So pulling that forward to now, I made a living as a songwriter in the gaming business, made great money. People didn't even know how to do licenses for games and music at that time, so we're in a new millennium now. And I have written some books for preteen girls and young teen girls, so most of my creations have been for girls and women. And now I have the opportunity to bring that material to the metaverse. And like everything else I've done along the way, music is always a big part of that. And so I am creating for my franchise, which is called Aventurine. It's a fantasy world for girls. I'm creating a stage in the metaverse in Roblox. If any of you guys have kids, you know Roblox. Roblox stage. And we'll live stream music shows onto that stage. And so my very first pool of talent will be the Austin community.
Yay, that's
good. And the
Mm-hmm.
project is for girls and women. So I would just say all females and people who think like females. So it's fanciful, it's beautiful, it's fashiony, it's hip. and it has a lot of music in it. So that is my idea of the metaverse. Web3 is another thing. We are interfacing and bringing our project in through Web3, which is online like a website, like a Web 2 traditional website, but it has Web3 components. So kids can get NFTs that are digital assets that they can own, and they can use as utility to get into the game and get things. So that's my short version of what Web3 is. But anyway, this is bringing an entire lifetime career in music to a new place. And I'm not done yet, but anybody who's writing songs, a female in this community, I'm gonna open it up in a few months to applications.
Thank you. And so I was with Jan when when Fairy Godmother first launched, and that was the book series for girls, and women were heavily involved. And just briefly, Jan pitched this concept that there was an innate wisdom in women and young women and girls. And what was Hollywood's response to that earth-shattering idea, Jan?
Well, I pitch it to everybody, big companies, and big agents, all the stuff you think you want, right? But it was generally, wow, this is really cool, but I wish you'd do this for boys. And I'm like, well, everybody else is doing it for boys. I want to do it for girls, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's still like that on some levels, but I think a lot of the walls have been broken down now.
Better.
I mean, we're unstoppable, and technology has a lot to do with that, and this is a whole new world. It's kind of like the beginning of the internet when people didn't know what that meant. And we're in a new form of that. So it's wide open if you're willing to bust down doors.
Well, and I really appreciate that you are going to mine that initial talent out of Austin. There's so many songwriters, performers, young talent coming up that, we need to create a more of an industry here that supports a quality of living, of pay and wages. So I'm going to turn it to Mallory for a second here. So obviously, as the general manager of Antone's, you know the ins and outs of booking bands, and talk to us a little bit about what you've seen in the changes over since the pandemic. How have you guys emerged, and what are you able to do and see about getting women on stage with an equitable wage?
Oh man, okay, so since the pandemic, I mean, even just since Antone's, this iteration of Antone's started, our whole goal was to bring the club back to what Clifford's dream was, and his whole legacy, and making sure that was never lost. I think there were some times that, especially when the club was closed, that people were like, what's really going on with Antone's? And so as this iteration opened, our talent buyer, Zach Ernst, really made a point to bring folks like Sue Foley, Luann Barton, women who basically created this environment at Antone's in like the 70s and 80s and 90s, and were behind the entire movement of it.
Right.
Women really built Antone's, and that's kind of a little known secret.
Nice.
And so as we've moved through and gained more traction in this version of Antone's, our goal has been to, yes, get more women on stage, create more diversity on our stage, not just the blues, but all types of music, world music, Spanish speakers, people of all different, backgrounds, and especially with that, bringing in folks to make sure that they are actually able to make a living wage while they're playing our stage. Times where we have, made the cover charge free. It's an Austin Appreciation Day, but we are absolutely going to make sure that the club is paying those artists, specifically women, specifically people of color. And that's been the ultimate goal since I came into this version of Antone's. And I think from the very beginning, Clifford's dream was to get these folks on stage and make sure they could keep doing what they were doing, because they couldn't do it elsewhere and make money and live and be working musicians.
Exactly.
So yeah, we're continuing that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thea, what were you
absolutely.
I was just going to say, and I was pleasantly surprised when I walked in here yesterday, and the entire Antone's team were women.
Nice.
Everybody who was
nice.
setting up all the tables and talking to me about where to go and setting up the mic and our down to the bartender. I mean, everybody. So, and I shouldn't say down to because she was very important. But it was just I can't remember the last time I walked into a club and saw that.
That was not like a totally conscious, intentional thing. It sort of came about over time. Just the people who we hired that began to step up just happened to be women. No real surprise there. But yeah, majority of our staff are females or, identify as female or yeah, I mean, the one area I can't seem to find a female sound engineer that I can get in here,
That seems to
very
be the tricky bit.
often.
I can help.
And I would love to talk to you about that. They all have gigs other places, which we celebrate. We're happy for that. But that is the one place that I'm like, I've got to get a female sound engineer in here because I have, female representation across all areas of our business. So.
Well, I'm sure Lisa can channel someone
We'll
for
talk.
you right away. So you talked a little bit right then, and I know that Sharana did as well. Equity, this is such an important concept, and it affects all of us. When we're out of balance, everybody loses. So can you talk a little bit, and I'll let Thea start, about outreach and trying to make our day-to-day, your day-to-day in your business, look representative to the communities we serve. How do you intentionally do that? What kind of changes have you seen?
Yeah, raising awareness is probably the number one issue because when I start talking about like the statistics and the studies and the experiences of women in music, your average music lover is shocked. They had no idea. Music is a la-la land kind of fun business where everybody's treated so well and nothing ever happens. Me Too went right over the music industry, didn't touch it at all. And so, yes, people are shocked when they hear that, you were talking about finding a female engineer. What is the statistic now, Lisa? I think it's 5%.
Well, it depends because the statistic is based on women who win Grammys and are on major labels. And so I don't like to use that statistic because it presumes that there aren't many women engineers, whereas there are a ton. And just like musicians, there's really no excuse for not hiring them at all. They're just not getting those opportunities.
They're not getting the opportunities. Because I think they said working audio engineers, 5%.
It's way more than that.
Yeah.
That's award winning. Yeah.
I love that. So the point being is that raising awareness is a huge part of it, and we produce a podcast called Backstage Chats with Women in Music, and we interview women like Lurleen. There are a number of people in here who we've interviewed. Jan was one of my first people that I interviewed, and the house that Barbie built, and so. Getting that out there, last year our social media and our podcast reached 78,000 people. So we know that we're getting the message out. And by the way, we too have people saying, well, how come you won't let men on the podcast? I'm like, let's look at the name. Backstage Chats with Women in Music. But I don't understand. So, again, it's about understanding what are the different roles that we can play. Sure, I like to sing and play music, but I wasn't driven in that way or talented enough by the time I was 18 or knew that I could do anything else in the music industry. So I knew I could write, but I kind of had that thing, maybe it's poetry, maybe it's lyrics, but I can become a music journalist. And that's how I got involved because I didn't know any other way to get into the industry. So you got to see it to be it. Showing people, listening to their stories about how they've contributed in different ways in the music industry is a huge part of what we do.
Good.
I think there are a lot of different ways we can think about equity as it relates to women in music and the music industry in general. As a Black woman who, comes from a culture that has created, unique forms of music, jazz and hip hop, I think that it's rap music. I think it's really important that there's a recognition from an economic standpoint of those contributions. And that just is across the board. And I think that's the responsibility of anybody who's in the business who wants to focus on equity. I think when it comes to the industry as it is today, it would be wonderful to have women giving back to our kids in our school systems, that where music programs have not been funded properly. And we know that children, regardless of what career they take later on in life, that music and the arts is a beautiful foundation for empowerment and your viability in the workplace. You know, it teaches you skills that you need to, you know, teamwork, listening, partnering, creating, producing something. And so, you know, I think that's an equity issue that sometimes we don't really talk about, is that how are we producing the next generation of women to sit on this stage, and what is our responsibility today for that? And then I think about just, you know, again, from the economic lens, where are the venues that are owned by Black and brown people and women in this community, and how are we supporting and fostering those? Because I think if all of those, if the appreciation, the acknowledgement, the economic acknowledgement, the education, and then the spaces, if all of those come together intentionally, then we won't have a need, you know, in the same way that we do today, to have conversations about what is the role of women in the music industry, because it's understood. We've taught it, we've trained it, we've supported it, we've financed it, we've molded it and shaped it. So I think that women in this community can be empowered to really have that conversation, and we at Austin Woman are really wanting to foster those kinds of discussions.
What I saw yesterday in that group of women was the fact that we were all still so disconnected. So 30 women, different aspects of the business, different levels of success, and the one thing that came through yet again was isolation. Now, I came to music late. I'm gonna my air quotes up there, late at the age of 37. So I felt like I was a little out of the flow because I hadn't done it for 2 decades. And so I thought, I'm a little isolated, maybe, you know, by choice, or I'm just a little reticent. But what I'm so surprised to see over and over again is that that women don't seem connected to one another, even around, in a city this small, around a passion that we all share. And I really am so curious as to why that is. I'll take anybody's answer. I don't get it, so I'm gonna, and when you have difficult problems, your answer is always to stay curious. So why do you think it is that women are disconnected from one another?
I will answer that.
Okay, my wise
It is
friend.
generational. Let's start with that. So we're representative of a generation that did not grow up with TikTok. You know, if you're younger and you're in music, you're all over the place, right? You've got a huge community. You may have 1 million followers just because you're in social media. So all that is open to us as well. And I think that we're just, you know, we're also busy. We have families and other careers and whatever. So it is harder for women to commit a lot of time to that career or that interest.
So you think that's it?
I'll add, I think it's the way we're socialized. Yeah. You know, most of us have gone through an education system that teaches competition. And so from the very beginning, we are taught that there's a scarcity of resources, a scarcity of ideas, and I'm probably gonna step on some toes, so forgive me, but even in the realm of ideas and what is my property in terms of an idea, you know, we have been, because it gets monetized and that's how we quote unquote make our living, is that a lot of times what I see is that men and women, but since we're talking about women, we are incredibly competitive. And therefore, we don't trust, we don't talk, we don't congregate, we don't support each other in the ways that are healthy for a community to thrive within. So, you know, conversations around how we behave towards each other in a marketplace are really important, because we don't have those kinds of conversations right now. We don't talk about, my culture has, and other cultures have ideas of like everybody puts money in the pot, you know, and we support somebody's idea and you go off and do that. You see that a lot in Vietnamese culture, right? You know, where it's about how do we lift and support each other. So I think there's some things that we as women can learn from other cultures that we don't get in our Western acculturation process that can help us break down some of those barriers. But I think competition is probably the biggest thing.
Well, and scarcity, of course,
Well,
right?
that's what it breeds.
And
Yeah.
creativity, right? You know, so is it not, you can think of any opportunity to co-write with someone, but when money starts to get involved, people get a little touchy, right? Is it yours? Is it mine? Is it ours? You know, what is that? You know, Mark, talk a little bit about, I think the Austin music scene is everything's good on a handshake, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about this place, because in Los Angeles it was, the handshake didn't mean a lot. Let's just put it that way. But there is a competitiveness, but I'd say Austin, the community here for me has been much more open to, let's just do this and see what happens, you know. Unfortunately, that's also the downside of it, because when there is something that happens, and then you're talking about it, and you know, well, I wrote the bridge to that, so
Right.
you know, what do I wrote the music, you wrote the lyrics, so I think the competitiveness is also in the male community as well. So the point is really well taken, though. That more of this sharing and everything, and communication. Let's just communicate. Let's be everything on the table. You know, we're going to co-write. Yeah, let's talk about it right away. Let's so that we don't have to talk about it later.
Right.
Yeah, let's get it straight, and then let's go in and do it.
So the difference between, say, here in Nashville, so I was just recently in Nashville, so everything was about a contract before anybody said anything to anybody. And on one hand, you know what, I was fine with that in one way, because the tone is set. So what if the women that are with Herizon, what if we just all of a sudden just tighten up in a big way? We walk in with our contracts, our work for hire contracts, and we just come in a little bit more buttoned up than the Austin way. What do you think would happen? How would that be met in venues and in studios?
Change hurts. You will be rejected. You might have some people who appreciate it. One of the things that we talked about yesterday is, you know, the power of a pricing sheet. And then that helps you with your negotiation, because it is a negotiation. But if you have something to hand somebody and say, this is our starting point, then, you know, you've got something behind you that feels good. But I do believe also that there's a confidence thing, and I'm experiencing it right now, imposter syndrome. I don't know what the hell I'm doing on here with all you incredibly talented people who I look up to. And there's a lot of people who feel that way, so they're not going to push their value to anybody. And we did have somebody say yesterday, well, if you push too hard, they just say, don't worry about it, we'll hire a man.
Right.
And so, you know, where does the conversation start and end? That's a good question.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, just on the topic. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you
On
go
the
first.
topic of contracts and being a little more businesslike, I look at it as a way for Austin to level up. I think it's a good thing. I speak to so many engineers and women especially who step into that producer role who don't get credits and don't get any kind of payment for that after the fact. And so one of the things I'm doing is working with studios to help onboard their clients before they get to the studio. Like you mentioned how important pre-production is.
Right.
It's not happening. People are hiring an engineer, going in the studio, recording, and then they're not getting the product they want because they weren't well prepared, but then also the engineer might wind up being a producer and not getting credits on it. And I just think tightening up all that, I don't see a downside to that at all. I think it just makes us more viable in the
Clarity.
system. Yeah.
Clarity.
Yeah, definitely.
Serves us all well.
For sure.
Jan.
So there's a part of the music business that we haven't talked about yet
Bring
too
it.
much, and that is music publishing, or the songwriting portion of the music business. And I think that's a place that women could own the business. And quite a few women do own, awards and money that they've made through music publishing. But more importantly, right now, all of the rules around music publishing are being rewritten. And I think it's important for women's voices that we have a seat at that table, and that we are rewriting the rules based on some of the things that we're talking about right now. And I realize that's not available to all of us, but what is available to all of us is paying attention to the songs and the messages that we're giving, because that is women in music. Our voices are what we're trying to express. We're not just trying to perform or create, businesses. We're trying to express ideas and ways of being in the world that are unique to us. And so I really feel like music publishing is a place that we ought to really be on our game. If you're a songwriter or a performer that writes their own songs, that's a really important aspect of your job. And hopefully there are other songwriters in this room that would be interested in seeing what the new rules are going to be.
I think we're all excited about the new rules. I think the old rules have not been terribly sustaining for songwriters, and I'm very excited about the opportunity to learn more about licensing. And if these changes are happening in the tech city like Austin, we should be driving that process. So
yes,
that's on your list, Thea. Well, before we wrap this panel up, I want to thank you all. And then I'm just going to ask you, so I have a wonderful CEO coach that works with me, and at the end of each of our little coaching sessions, he says, Lurleen, what resonated the most with you of what you've heard? So I'll let Lisa, what you heard in the first panel, Lisa, what has resonated with you?
Well, I just like hearing that people are also witnessing the collaboration and cooperation that I am in the community, and our male allies as well. I have nothing but positive outlook on the future for us. And one thing that Terry Winston, who's the founder of Women's Audio Mission, said that stuck with me was she never knocked down a door. She just picked a different door and went around. And if she encountered somebody in the industry that wasn't friendly and wasn't helping her, she did not waste her time with that person. She went and built something different. And I think that's what we're doing here, is we're building our own economy, basically, and our own support group that people need to get on board with it or they're going to be left out. So
Agreed.
I feel the same way. I feel like it's heartening to see strong women in a room together, knowing that each one of us has a mission, and it's, something that we're willing to stand up for and show up for.
Yay us, right? No, seriously.
Yeah.
I think that we have to celebrate each other. And that's one of the things that we're really focused on. I think for me, I am most curious and interested in the conversation that you shared about the metaverse and Web3. And how we might, I'm giving an assignment to my managing editor, how we might talk about that a little bit more to help women understand. So just the education, the communication, and the collaboration.
Very good.
I think going back to what you were saying, learning about how to learn from other cultures, how to bring connectedness into our industry here, changing the ways that we are gathering and connecting with one another, that to me is like this really big call to action that I think we all can listen to and heed and find so much more for ourselves and more support and a push to get us further. That is what I think what's resonating most with me.
Perfect. Thea?
Well, it's Austin, so of course the technology possibilities.
Yeah.
And how it's leveling the playing field for us, and especially for women over 40, because there are a lot of gatekeepers out there who are like, you have aged out. You are over 30 years old. I wasn't even hitting my stride at 30 years old. So it's the possibilities of being able to have merit-based success, no matter your age, your appearance, your familial status, moms, and or your orientation. I think that's the big thing going forward.
Wonderful. Mark?
I think for me, what has impressed me most is that we're all are getting together and talking about this, and that it has to do with not just with women, but with ageism, because that's really big, and especially with women, because I feel like women have gotten a raw deal through the years in so many ways, and especially as they grow older. So the fact that you added that 40 plus on there, that's pretty great in my opinion that we're talking about it.
Thank you, Mark. That's an ally right there.
That's
Thank
why
you
we
all
love you, Mark.
so much. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
on yourself when you just,
I know, Kathy.
Yeah.
I know today. I know,
Yeah.
Kathy.
But yeah, I think it's just it was a dream. I wanted to get on a stage. I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to get to do it the first time. You feel like a fraud the first time. I did. I felt like a fraud, but I didn't care. I was doing it anyway.
Right. What about you, Tamika?
I can remember I played a rally for Beto a couple of years ago. It was like in Silker Park or somewhere, and it was so many people, more people than I've ever played for in my life. Willie Nelson was headlining, and then it was Leon Bridges. And I remember before going on, I had this panic attack. I'd never had a panic attack in my life, but the stakes were so high, I felt at that time, and I never performed, and I'm like, I'm gonna screw up. People are gonna hate me. They're gonna see that I'm a fraud. I'm an imposter. But then I had to get a hold of myself and say, if you don't do this, people will think you're not ready for the next level. And I have to be ready and conquer my fears and my demons. So when I went on stage, it was like I blacked out. I mean, not like literally, but it was just like, when I'm on stage, something takes over me, and I just have to get on stage and be a vessel. And I have anxiety all of the time. I'm trying to battle it. Recently, now that I'm not an active mother anymore, I'm trying to work on myself and my healing. And I remember last night I had a show at C-Boys. It was, a couple of people, and I was still like anxious. Like, girl, why are you anxious? Girl, you got this. And I remember my daughter telling me the story she saw on Instagram. Jack White said, we're musicians are vessels, and you have to like kill your ego. You have to kill everything that's going on in your life in order to receive the higher power that you were blessed to be a vessel of. And so whenever I'm anxious, from now on, she told me this a couple of days ago, I was like, well, that's so profound. Whenever I'm anxious, I just want to recognize what my gifts and how blessed I am to have them, and how blessed I am to connect with people and help them get through their lives with my gifts. So I am a vessel, period. So that's, I think, is going to be a tool in helping me get rid of any future anxiety.
All right. Good answer. Okay. Thank you, Tamika. What about you, Sue?
Well, when I first got to Austin, and I was pretty young, Clifford Antone brought me here and put me up on stage in the club with, I think the first weekend I was here, I was put up on stage with Albert Collins. And as a guitar player, that's about the most fierce guy that was on the scene. I mean, he was the master of the Telecaster, and I was like 21. And, Clifford was really an advocate for putting the young artists up with the older artists and carrying the music forward and making sure that everybody had that direct transmission that you kind of need. When I think about this question, I think about the best way to kind of prepare yourself to get on stage is just to prepare yourself and practice your ass off and be really good. But there's things you can never be prepared for, like getting up with Albert Collins. And so you just kind of go with it and let it go right through you and take the experience to make you a better player, because I think the better the player you get up with, the higher it raises you up. So I think that was my biggest lesson from him, is just to always reach higher. And there's heights that you will never get to.
Right.
Like your heroes. You'll never get there because they're your heroes, and they're always going to be on a pedestal. But it's always good to reach as high as you can.
Very good.
Yeah.
How about Amy?
When you said early in your career, for me, that was basically in my 40s. I started really late. I didn't write my first song till I was 40. I didn't release my first album till I was 41. And so I've always been nervous when playing music. It wasn't something I started young. I mean, I dabbled a little bit in choir in high school, but it was such an uncomfortable space for me. And then all the stories come into my head, like, what are you doing? You're a mom. Why are you wearing leather pants at 40? Whatever it is. And you know, I was led to electric guitar, which I love because it's very forgiving and I can like it dirty and messy, and I'm a child of the 80s. But those were always uncomfortable spaces for me performing. They still are when I get up. And I have to use all that experience as a catalyst to overcome the stories in my own mind. And that's become my life focus, is using my voice to its fullest potential and to be my best self. And that's what music was for me. It was about just doing it. When you're in those uncomfortable spaces, those are where you grow. Those are where you get better. Those are where you expand your comfort zone just a little bit more. And so, yeah, I'm able to do it a little bit more, but I was always nervous in those spaces, and I always had a little imposter syndrome, and I always had all these things coming up. But ultimately, it was so good for me, and the more I did it, the more I was able to recognize, oh yeah, this is going to be good for me, so I can silence those voices and keep growing into that space.
Nice. Well, and you know, there's a quote that I use a lot, which is, it's from Bill Withers. You guys have heard me maybe say it before, which is, nobody gets to wonderful without passing through all right. I think that's true for everybody. I think women, sometimes we are quick to underestimate our capabilities, which makes it hard to get to wonderful, you know, as you're passing through all right. You might think, I don't have it, I can't do it. How do you all maintain your focus and passion on your craft in spite of those voices that, you know, might be getting at you at the back of your mind?
I think age is a little bit of a blessing in that regard. And the older we get, the more we're able to know that we're going to get through it, know we're going to survive. We're not in survival. And for me, it's been eye-opening to have that beginner mindset a little bit and be able to take on something new and embrace that newness. And so I like it for that reason.
Okay.
Money,
okay.
I want to be real. I started doing this when I was, 13, 14 years ago. I became pregnant with twins in college at Baylor University. Boy and a girl, they're about to be 22. So after I got pregnant with my twins, I moved in with my mother. I'm narcoleptic, so like a normal 9 to 5, 8 to 5 is not in the cards for me because of my sleep disorder. I knew I could sing. I knew I was charismatic and cute and fashionable. So I was like, let me try music. So I'm in this for life. I'm in this until the day I die. And sometimes that scares me because there's sometimes that I don't like music, especially the business. The business pollutes music for me. And I wish I could separate it. I wish I had people to help me, like a village to help me. But the reason I keep going is because I don't have any office skills. This is my skill. This is what I was put on this earth to do. When I moved to LA last year, because I was like, I'm done with Austin. I'm done with music. I can't stand this. Because, you know, as a woman and as an independent musician, you get to wear all these hats. And I was tired of my neck breaking for years, being a single mother and being an independent musician. I was like, deuces to Austin and music. And I left it. And I was like, yes, I'm going to be like a little office assistant for somebody. And then like do some sync on the side. And no one wanted to hire me. I don't have any skills. My skill is like singing and songwriting and performing and being me. And that's what the universe was like, girl, I know you're not trying to take another job because I gave you this gift. You are not going to escape. And I was like, please, I just want out. It's so hard. He was like, no. And I was like, fine. So I moved back to Austin. And to be honest, just money. And this is my destiny. I've accepted it. Like rainbows or feces. This is my destiny.
That's a perfect dichotomy. Okay. Thank you for your honest answer, Tamika. That's what we need. Okay. Well, I feel like it's important to jump right into the age thing because that's where we're at. So I'm going to read a quote, and I'm going to see who in the audience knows who said this. Once again, I am caught in the glare of ageism and misogyny that permeates the world we live in. A world that refuses to celebrate women past the age of 45 and feels the need to punish her if she continues to be strong-willed, hardworking, and adventurous. Anybody out there would like to guess who said that? Madonna said that. That's right. She said that after she was at the Grammys. So I'm gonna lay that at your feet, ladies, and whether you love her music, don't love her music, love the look, don't love the look, what do you think about that statement, Kathy? Nothing, no woman celebrated past 45. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know. I think there's no lumping people around. You know, like everyone has their experience, and I mean, in the context of Madonna talking about at the Grammys, I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that stuff, but you know, I'm 64. I've been doing this since I was 15, and I've been doing it professionally since I was 21, and I have never stopped, and I'm not going to stop. I mean, it does pretty good for me, I think. You know,
you look good.
Playing music keeps you young and keeps you current, or you know, keeps you paying attention and aware. And you know, I just try to stay out of all that. I don't care. I don't care what anyone says or whether I'm too old or, you know, I don't feel too old. You know, I'm still in a band. I'm still right now. I got a little studio. I write every day. I like it. I just like it. So I don't know what to, in the context of Madonna, I don't know how to answer that. I just know I don't personally think it's that's not my experience. I just don't let it in. It's not in.
Well, I think that's fair.
I love what you said right then, because so much of it is about what we're paying attention to and what we're subscribing to. And I think that there's always these conversations like, oh, she's that age, or even in society, you know, like Sharonda had mentioned the competition, but there's also these conversations like, oh, you're in an all-female band. Well, we know what that means. You know, women are going to do this and that. And I've always just rejected those. Like, no, that's not the conversation I want to have, and that's not where I want to put my mindset. And so where your focus is determines where you're going. I mean, of course, that's Madonna, but like Kathy said, you know, you're staying the course. You are eyes on the prize. You are staying in the mindset of like, this is who I am, and I'm using my voice in the best way possible. So,
Tamika, you want to take a swing?
Same. Yeah, I've been so focused on being a mother and a musician. That's rich people problems with what Madonna's talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like middle class, lower to middle class, so she can you know wax philosophical all she wants to about that. But I'm 40. I'll be 45 in September, and I'm still going. I don't give a bleep about ageism, because I'm still looking good. I'm still rocking it, you know.
She is absolutely.
So it's like,
okay.
Madonna can sit on her pile of money and cry and boo-hoo about, but we're still here in the trenches over here, bro. We're still in the trenches. So I don't know. That's, like I said, rich people problems.
Well, and
for me.
Before you jump in, Sue, so I'm going to couch that quote less from the source, and I'm going to put it in the context of what I heard from women. So in December of last year, I released my second album, and I did a search anywhere, all over the United States. I said, let's find a woman to fly to Austin and open for me, because I was a person that came late, like you, Amy. We put the air quotes late, and I knew what it was like to feel that the world was looking at me, and I thought that, listen, I'm coming in late, so my best way to fight that was to be perfect. Because I had all these deficits. I was too late, I was too old, I was too fat, you pick one. So I had better make up for it with the level of performance and the writing. So I was trying to reach out to women in this age group specifically, and when I asked them to share their stories, this is what came back. I'd really love to do that, but I got to lose 10 pounds. My chance for this ended. I don't look right. And it went on and on and on. So let's take Madonna out of it and just say society has a problem with women over a certain age being visible, loud, making waves, and pursuing what makes them happy. Because if they didn't have a problem with it,
we wouldn't all be sitting here talking. So, Sue, I'm going to roll it back to you for a second with that little twist. Tell me, what do you think? What would you say to a woman over 45 who says, "Oh, I love to be in the music industry, but it is just too late for me"?
What would I say to them?
Yeah, what would you say to
I
them?
would say, suck it up. What are you expecting? This is a hard business. It's hard for everybody. And if you want to get into it, get ready. It's a minefield, and suck it up. Just get in there, and if you have a calling and you really have something to say and you're really good at your craft, you're going to be okay. And you focus on your craft, and you get better, and you block out the BS, because there's a ton of it, and try not to be competitive. They always say, I found recently that I heard somewhere, just be competitive with yourself from yesterday, and don't worry about all the other stuff, because I think it really just poisons your mind. But, you know, when I came up, I'm a little bit of a freak, because I came up as a teenager that was into blues, and everybody was older. So I didn't even think I could be an artist until I was over 40. And I started professional at 16. I started playing at 13. I was driven to be a professional. I was professional at 16. I was on the road at 18. I was signed at 21. But I never thought I'd even have anything relevant to say until I was over 40. And that's when I thought, okay, now I can be a blues artist, you know? And I'm 55 now, and I'm just getting going, because this isn't the kind of music I get into. Everybody was over 50. 50, 60, 70, and your voice gets richer and your message gets stronger. So I'm always just like, maybe I'll get there, you know? But everybody I like is older, so.
Okay.
I think age is great, you know?
Well, as we talked about, I was saying to somebody earlier, if it's, it has to shift from being a bug to being a feature, because otherwise you'll just sort of chase yourself, right? I wanted to ask you also, so when we talk about aging gracefully, what did that concept mean to your mother's generation? Aging gracefully, what did that mean to your mother's generation?
My mom was really not a typical mom in any form or fashion or any way. And so, she just did what she wanted when she wanted. The rules didn't apply to her. When she was saying to me, "Do you realize how hard it is for me to be dependent on you financially?" And I said, "Fine, go to the senior center and find an old man to take care of you. I don't want to do it." And she said, "I don't want to be with some old man. I want to be with a 30-year-old. So that was her version of aging gracefully.
Interesting. What about you, Tamika? What would your mother have said about aging gracefully, or a woman her age?
Aging gracefully. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a trap, but I think women, our mother's age might have had a clear message about what that was supposed to look like.
I'm stumped.
You're stumped.
I'm stumped about that term, aging gracefully. It just, I don't know. Let me think about it.
Okay. Amy, you want to jump in?
My mother was a little older when she had me, and that was unusual for the time. So she always said she was born 10 years too early. She should have been burning bras in the 60s, and she was a product of the 50s. And so many times we're just product of when we're born, you know, and those things get ingrained in us. And I know her mother, she expressed to me one time, she said, "I think, my mother was putting stories on me about how you're supposed to look and how you're supposed to act and people pleasing and being a lady and what that means." And I think my mother was willing to break some of those norms. She was a writer and a poet. And so I think that she would be pleased with anyone that's following their path. And I think she instilled that in me. And I'm hoping, she passed before I did any of this, when I was actually pregnant with my daughter, who's here today, and named after her, Sydney. And so, it carries forward, and I now really use that to look to the next generation of what I'm putting out. That has such an impact on my voice and everything I do. And the stories that I'm going to carry forward, is it misogyny, is it all these things? Yeah, those are real, but what are we going to focus on, and what am I going to put forward to my children? And so, she's pursuing music now. She's here listening to this. We're having these conversations. So I guess it comes back to aging gracefully. I think it is using your voice and standing up for women, and I'm proud to say that I think my mother would have appreciated that. So
I'm sure she would.
yeah.
How about you, Sue?
My mother was a 50s kind of that generation, so it's a different mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think they thought of aging gracefully. I think they just got beat up by life and just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no, I do think a different time, a different expectation.
Totally. There was no self-help. There was no, all they had was drinking. There was no, not that she drank, but, that's all they had to alleviate the pain of life. So there was a lot of depression and stuff, I think. But people didn't have the tools that they have now. I think we're way beyond. Our 40s are not what our parents' 40s were by a long shot.
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone here. I was like, this is women, Wavemakers, women in music 40 plus. There might have been a time where it was like, we don't want to draw any attention to that age number, but it feels okay, right? It doesn't feel like a heavy burden. It's fine to stand in your own truth and own that. And I'm glad that that's an option now. I think that aging gracefully is a trap, because I think it's that thing that women get caught in of Goldilocks moment. Just right, a little bit of this, a little less of that, and all of a sudden you've spent your time and resources trying to please some standard that it shifts from moment to moment. So what I'm hearing from you ladies is you've sort of given the middle finger to that, and I appreciate that out of all of you. For sure. Well, obviously, from what you've said, you know that we lift as we rise, right? So we bring women along with us as we go. Surely there were other women in your careers early on, or even recently, that did that for you. Can you describe who those women were and the impact they had on your career?
I'll start,
okay,
if I may, and I'm going to say Kathy Valentine, and how grateful I am to her. I had a tendency to stumble into beneficial situations, and I was fortunate enough to meet Kathy and get to learn some songwriting from her and write some of my first songs with her. And it taught me so much and gave me so much more confidence and helped me not be as nervous in those situations that I talked about earlier. But anyway, I just think of Kathy always, and so thank you. And really, I got to shout out all Austin musicians too, because I felt like the community was so welcoming here, even as I was doing it in my 40s. I don't know if you had this experience, but everybody was really cool and very welcome. We're so fortunate to be here in Austin, and I was really grateful just to the musicians I met that were like, yeah, come on, what are you doing? Okay, I appreciate that, and they could see the good. And anyway, so I'm just grateful to be in this space.
Very, very good.
I lament often that a lot of the women that were doing music in the days before YouTube and Google and social media, that we didn't know who they were. We know now. You can go on YouTube. You can see all these bands from the 60s. The image I had was women were groupies, or they were like pulling out their hair and screaming, looking at the guys on the stage, and that was what I saw. And when I started playing guitar, I loved rock and roll. All my favorite bands were men. It didn't occur to me when I'm playing guitar that I could be in a band. Didn't enter my mind, that jump. And even though I'd seen Heart, but Nancy Wilson was playing an acoustic guitar. To me, I was like, that was women. They played acoustic guitars, or they played pianos. I was fortunate to go to England. I'm half English. My mom was English. I saw when I was 14 years old, Susie Quattro on a TV show, and I'd never seen a woman with an electric instrument fronting a band and I fell on the floor. I mean, it was an earthquake, and I knew from that moment that's what I wanted to do. I came back to Austin, and I thought I was the only 15-year-old in the entire world that wanted to play guitar and be in a band. And I wish, because, you know, so much became relevant in the 60s and 70s, and I think a large reason that women are so absent from the rock landscape is that we didn't know visibility is key. You know, if we had seen the Pleasure Seekers in Detroit, you know, in 1962, 14-year-old girls playing a band, if we'd seen the Debutantes, if we'd seen, I mean, there's just all these bands. Look them up on YouTube. Look up female bands of the 60s. And when you went to see a concert, like now you go see Harry Styles and half the band is women. You go see Lenny Kravitz and the drummer is a woman, or the bass player is a woman, or David Bowie, or Beyonce, or you go to any concert and there's women in the band. And that's something that girls will look up and go, oh, I could do that. But they weren't there. I didn't see that. And that's a huge change from when I was starting, is that you can see that now. And you know, when my band, the Go-Go's, were playing, we were on MTV, you know, so little girls saw us. They saw us on television in their living room. So that begat Courtney Love and, you know, all these bands,
right,
because they saw this. And it's so much about visibility. And I just think it makes me sad to think how much talent we didn't get, how many great artists didn't happen because it wasn't visible, you know. That makes me sad, because we would be all over that. We'd be up there. And now it's still, sorry to go on and on, I'm really passionate about this. But like now, even the bands that make it, they're still like Green Day or Coldplay or Foo Fighters, you know, where's the women? You go on YouTube, look up women playing guitar, you'll see like hundreds of them sitting in their bedroom shredding away, you know, but you don't see them out there, except for the ones that are getting the gigs, which is awesome. That's a good change. All right, I'll shut up.
No, that was good. That was a good answer. Okay, so Tamika, we were asking about a woman that was influential in helping you move up through your career.
Influential. I will tell a story about someone who included me in her success. Jackie Vinson.
Yes.
I remember she had an ACL taping, and she asked me to sing a song with her at her taping, and it was just a huge honor. You know, being an Austinite, doing an ACL taping is just huge. Whether you're doing your own taping or you're involved in a taping, and I just was so touched that she chose me to guest star in her spotlight. And this is around the time with George Floyd, and she wore this dress, and she had all of the names of the people, of the African Americans who were killed by police. And I had a Breonna Taylor dress on that I had custom sewn with her name on it. It was just a really powerful statement of two black women, two Austin natives, black women, and she just chose to bring me up in her spotlight, and I really appreciated that. You know, Jackie is a monster, like in a good way, like not a monster, but she's like a beast. She's always about her craft. She's always working. She's always grinding, and she inspires me a lot. I'm not half as organized, and I don't have the resources she does, and I wish I did, but I just love watching her rise and watching her grind, and she's just an inspiring female that I look up to.
I agree, and she's generous. She's a very generous
very
soul.
generous, very sweet and sincere, and I just really love her.
She was just too darn young for this panel, so she's 32. We'll get her soon. Sue, is there a woman that was instrumental in supporting your success early on?
Oh yeah, like lots. But when I first came to Austin, the Antones record label was all women, and the club was almost all women. And they had a lot of women musicians that came in and out of the house band and played at the club. So I was lucky to just sort of be surrounded, by that group and be nurtured by that group. And Angela Straley, who started the club with Clifford, she was the one who told Clifford about me. So I would tip my hat to her any day. And she was also, for me, I was, in my early 20s. Angela was already older. And so it was just somebody you could look up to and say, you know what, this woman kicks ass. She's older, she's sexy. I just thought she was the coolest. And she kind of reached out to pull me down here, which was amazing. Yeah.
Very good. Well, and as Kathy said, I think you have to see it first, right, so that you know that you can become that. And we need role models at every sort of stage of the game. I'm hoping that this movement helps those artists that are coming up, that careers, last decades, not minutes, and that there's longevity there. I do think it's incumbent upon musicians like yourselves to continue to extend that branch out to developing talent, to women your own age that are just getting started. And I feel like you all recognize the importance of that. And so I encourage you to continue to be an ally for someone who's not at your skill level. I think it makes a difference when that you extend that helping hand. So thank you. I'm gonna open it up to the audience for some questions for our artists. And I've got plants out there, so okay.
Sorry, I'll hand it to
Brett's gonna go first.
No, this is kind of a really interesting thing. I literally just turned 40 like a couple weeks ago. And one of the things that I feel like I started turning 40 when I was 38, like I was preparing for it. But one of the things that I've noticed is like, why was it that like when I was 20, I was just 20? Or when I was 30, I was just 30. But all of a sudden at 40, I'm 50, 60, 70, like you become the second half. And I'm just curious, like what you guys noticed turning 40 and why you think that is.
Ladies.
I wish I was still in my 40s. That was peaking. I was like at the peak in my 40s. And it's a lot harder now. So 40s were good to me. But I think there's also the age when women aren't able to have babies. Like there's just something like kind of in the whole ether about like your usefulness, your when you go into menopause, for whatever reason, on an evolutionary cellular level, there's just some kind of like energy, like, oh, she can't fulfill her womanly purpose or whatever. I think this energy is around, and no matter how much we evolve or change, that can be a part of it too. Like your past, whereas the men, they can keep putting that stuff out there.
You got a hand.
They can propagate the species, and we can't after a certain point. I didn't mean the hand gesture to be so literal.
Okay. Okay.
I think there's like a willingness that you have to step into this sort of new role of womanhood and adulthood. And shifting into that was important for me. I remember one day I was at a lunch and I was sitting there with some women that I hadn't met before, and I realized that I was considerably the oldest person there. And I noticed that I liked it. And I just turned 50, and I'm just surprised by how much I'm liking it. And so allowing ourselves to really like it is outside the norm, right? And I am enjoying it. It felt like a position of power. It felt like I knew something. And so, I think that that's a cool shift that we can make into, yeah, you're 40. Happy birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Congrats. Yeah. Very good.
Peak.
Hi. Heather.
Yeah, my question, I'm embarrassed to ask this question, so I decided that meant I should ask it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess I've always been a musician, and about 15 years ago, I started having babies, and so that changed everything, and I stopped performing because I was trying to perform and paying the babysitter more than I was making it every gig, and that was not sustainable because I was poor. And so then I started teaching. So then I've spent a lot of time, teaching, and life, has lifed me. I lost everybody but my brother, and my children have died in the last several years, so I've written some great fucking songs. But my question now is, this is so embarrassing, but I don't even know what my package looks like anymore. Like, what do I take to a venue at this point? Because it's not the same thing I was taking in my folder with my headshot and my CD. Like, should I be this embarrassed? Because I'm very embarrassed to ask that. But I really I want to get back out there, and I have no idea what to even show up with.
Sweet. Thank you for asking that question.
A QR code is great.
Yeah, like that little, it's your EPK. It's you decide, and I'm frightened that I'm giving this advice because they probably know more than I do, but something that's reflective of you now. Your face today, not your face at 25, right? Your aesthetic, what matters to you, the songs that are speaking, that you've most recently written that resonate with you and represent you as you are today. Sorry, I get up on my soapbox. I love Olivia Rodrigo. I think she's the bee's knees. You guys have all heard me talk about this. The driver's license song, love that song, it was in my head constantly. But if we do not have women writing from every stage of their lives, we're all gonna stand around and sing about the day after we got our driver's license. And there's a lot more to life, a lot more that we've done and experienced that needs a voice. So please keep writing through that pain, through all of that, and show up with it. We need that voice, and we need that perspective. Sorry,
What
my
she said,
soapbox.
so would she have pictures?
Yeah.
Because I'm in the music business, but I'm still very ignorant on how it operates. I know it because I just want to sing and I want to perform, and I don't want to do photo shoots. I don't want to do PR and stuff. But I know as an independent artist, you have to be all of these things. Mm-hmm. So was your question more about what do you need to start out with? Do you need a photo shoot? Do you need demos? Is that what your question?
So a lot of my
what are your
so
goals?
I haven't gone in the studio with anything in forever, and so I've done my own recordings, and I've hired some producers for some things, but I don't have a current album or anything like that. A lot of my stuff is just me sitting in my living room with a couple of pedals and a guitar singing. Can you just give them videos you've done at home if you haven't produced an album soon? Or
what are your
just
goals?
Sending
are you trying to play out? Are you trying to make an album? Are you trying to a whole career?
Honestly, at this point, so I'm gonna be 50 very soon, and my life is calmed down, and I just wanna go out. I don't even care if it's Opa. I just want to sit down and sing my songs somewhere, and I just don't even know how to approach that in 2023.
Right on.
What to hi, whoever you are.
I know what I would do. I would go to a lot of gigs, and I would talk to musicians and women, and get somebody to let you open for them. That's what I would do, and just make sure that your end is happening. You said you wrote a lot of great songs. Then you're more than halfway there if you got the material. So if you got great songs, all you need to do is get up there and play them.
And good for you for asking the question.
I know.
Yeah,
it's not embarrassing. Yes, good for you.
It's and this is a whole different world. I mean, if you put your stuff on Instagram, I have to say that, but I don't get TikTok. It's what I'm told. That's the only way. I have some friends in a band, women that had 4 number 1s in Canada, and they had won the Juno Award twice, and they were dropped by their label because their TikTok wasn't enough and their streams weren't enough. So that's a pretty messed up music business, but it also tells you, I don't get it. All I see is people dancing when I look at TikTok. That's all I see is them doing the dance. So I don't know how you turn that into a music career, but I know you need it. So do that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have a question about basically along the lines of what she said, but also the mental load of being a woman and a mother, and then trying to find the time to give a shit about your creativity. And like, I feel exhausted all the time. And I'm just wondering, like, the four of you, obviously, some of you are mothers, maybe some of you
We're all
aren't.
mothers.
Great, so you're all moms. How did you do that? Like, how do you find the will to want to write every day and do all those things when you're like feeling the intense societal pressure and motherly load and working full time and all of that? Because that's something that I sort of lost after becoming a mom.
I think we all got stuff to say about this.
Well, I started doing music full time, probably 6 years after I had my twins. When I had my twins, I was like 23, very young, and I worked in retail. Because what else am I gonna do? I just got out of college a little bit, and I started singing in cover bands. So I've always been music full time, whether cover bands or my own thing, and it was a struggle as a mother, especially a mother of twins and a single one. Their co-creator was not involved at all, so I was just doing this all by myself. I live with my parents, obviously, and I would just go back and forth. We lived in New Braunfels at the time. I recently moved to Austin, but that trek from New Braunfels to Austin was killer, especially late at night. I would be playing like the Continental Club Gallery late and get home at like 3, have to wake up and get my kids ready for school. It was crushing. Like, I have a lot of pain built up over the last 10, 15 years from grinding, from trying to make progress in the Austin music scene, and also being a mother. It was crushing. My advice to you, so you have a full-time job?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a 2-year-old.
Do you have like help?
Yeah, my husband's very involved, but he's a producer engineer, and
nice.
he also has another job because during COVID he lost all of his business. So now he's doing 2 jobs and then also helps with a kid. And he still finds time to be creative. Like at 10 o'clock at night, he's mixing and watching videos and talking to bands, and I'm just sitting on the couch like a zombie because like I'm having a really hard time getting the energy to care about being creative. And then it kind of drains me even more that I don't have a creative outlet anymore, and then it's just like cyclical.
You know, I did a big pile of research with women in guitar where I did over 100 interviews with women artists, and one of the things that really does, I think the main thing that does separate us is that we can bear children, and we have to be the bearer of children. So, and that's a huge, it's a huge output. So my advice to you, I mean, the creative will come back. You just created something huge.
And she's beautiful.
And you are in the process of creation all the time, right? Like, that's a creation that you're nurturing, and even though it doesn't seem like it's feeding into your music directly, it is. And it will come back. But at 2 years old, just give it up. I mean, just let it go. Don't let it go. You don't have to let it go completely. I never let it go. I played I started gigging again at 6 when my kid was 6 weeks old, and I was going back on the road. But it's one of the biggest challenges, and I think that it is probably the main thing that will stop a woman's music career is that I had kids, and I got to make a living. And how do you make a living in the music business anyway? But as a single parent, it's really, really challenging. So you're lucky you have a husband. And I would just cut yourself some slack and don't worry about it.
Amen.
She already just created something beautiful,
I would add on to that and say definitely cut yourself some slack. And that's like a habit. I'm all about just little habits that we can start to incorporate. So I don't know, maybe you set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes every day, and you start cultivating a habit where you just write for 5 minutes. Don't edit, just write, and just have these tiny little outlets that you start to build. And over time, you're going to look back and be like, wow, you know what? I've got a notebook full. I've got some things that I'm proud of. I am doing a little something for myself because, you know, we actually are better mothers and better partners when we're filling our own cup and doing things for ourselves and giving ourselves that care. So cut yourself the slack and find those little spaces, even if it's 5 minutes, just the littlest thing. And if you start doing it more often than you don't, you're going to feel like you have that creative outlet.
Yeah, I agree. And bingo for bringing up the elephant in the room about being a mom, because I think, and I'll pitch myself right now to Austin Women, a story that showed women being moms and still figuring out how to do it. Because it's one thing if you're Chrissy Hind or something and you got nannies and you got your own tour bus, but how does somebody that's playing the clubs when they have a couple of kids? I know some women that do it. Kristen Hirsch takes her kids on the road. I mean, it's something. So good for you for bringing that up. But I agree with Amy. Just start with writing, journaling. You know, just your experiences. Write about being exhausted. You know, about being, what you're experiencing. You know, that way you'll stay in touch with expressing yourself, and all that you write can turn into music. Yeah. It's all music's feelings.
Sharonda was.
Yes, we'll definitely write about that. I run a couple of businesses and have kids. They're out of the house now. I would just say give up some things that you normally do, like cleaning, and find a tribe. When my children were younger, we swapped babysitting duties, so that because I couldn't afford a babysitter. And my girlfriends had kids, and so we said, okay, this is your week to watch the kids, and we could go and do our creative pursuits. And so I think there are creative ways that you can give yourself back time that you would normally spend grocery shopping, running errands, the child care activities and that sort of thing. You have to have a tribe, whether you're, successful at this level or at an even higher level. It takes a team of people to help build that. So create it now, so that as your child ages out of the home, you will have that infrastructure built for your career, because they will leave, hopefully. Fingers crossed. And you want to have practice around how you support yourself in getting what you want out of life.
Is there a way you can, so you're a songwriter, right? Is there a way you can get away to like a songwriter group and find some and fill your cup there with other women? Because that's so vital and important to be with other women. That would fill your cup as well.
Come over on Saturday, Erin.
Yeah.
We'll write some music together. Go ahead.
This is a question for all y'all. So Austin, Texas is such a legendary city. So many amazing musicians have come from Austin. There's some amazing venues, Antone's, Threadgill's, recording studios, Cedar Creek, Arlen Studios. Tamika, you left Austin and went to LA, and I just want to know, what makes Austin so special? How do we keep it so special, and how can we build the community of our female support group and support, female musicians here?
You said what makes Austin so special?
Yeah, and how do we keep it special? And it's growing so fast.
I think that, if I may jump in, what Lurleen has created, and when I walked in, she mentioned connection, and I think that we keep having these conversations, and you all have a club like this that's lifting up women, and I think that keeps us blossoming in this amazing space if we can stay connected and keep having these conversations.
So when I went to LA, I saw so many female musicians everywhere, and when I came back here, it was like a sausage fest. So I would love to see more female musicians, more female drummers, more female guitar players, more female bass players, because they were killing it in LA, and I'm like, my mind was blown. I would love to see that representation here. I would love to see more diversity in Austin musician scene. What makes it special? How do I say this? Okay, so I left because I felt that I wasn't being served here. I was being taken for granted here. And that happens to a lot of musicians here because there's so many places to play. They're like, And when I came back, I felt so much love. Like I felt people appreciated me more when I left. So I would say that there's loyalty here. If you play some place like Seaboys and you have a residency somewhere, people will come and you could build a legacy here. But I will say that you can't get stuck on this glass ceiling here. People will appreciate you and be like, oh yeah, you're the queen of Austin, so. And I love that term. But it's just like, you're painting murals of me, but I need to pay my rent. I can't pay my rent with this mural. I need more opportunities here. I need to help other women get opportunities here. And thank you, Lurleen, for having this forum, like one first of many, I know. And I'm just glad this conversation is being had here in Austin. It's so desperately needed. I just think Austin needs more representation, and we need to be more active in getting the youth into music, like young females, because they're the future, and we need representation. Amen.
Good answer.
I also think Austin is really unique with Sims and Ham taking care of their musicians and home. You know, we have some organizations, nonprofits here that really are on the side of the musician. I don't think the city, I think a lot of this being special and I think that's self-anointed. I don't know if I see as much as they would like to pat themselves on the back. You know, I don't see it easy for musicians to live here, to park their car, to, you know, I mean, I just think it could be better. I'd love to see every club as a back line because, you know, it's hard for me. Like I used to just lift my amp up and toss it in the car, and now I'm like, ugh. Like I'm scared I'm gonna throw my back out, you know. I don't even want to go play if there's not an amp there. So I think there's like a lot of things. They should have parking for musicians. They should have rent breaks if you really are the music capital and if you really care about your musicians.
Agreed. More questions from the audience?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I think what I'm trying to get to is, in your way of discovering music as your passion, your drive, did you have a support system in place that encouraged you to pursue such a thing? Or do you find that you have to kind of just keep sticking with it because you get more out of it? You know, I'm just curious, like, at what level are you supported to enter this world of self-expression and creativity and art?
I think I was always supported, but I was so driven and so, like, from a teenager, you know, like, just really focused on it. I think if it's your calling, I don't think you can do this if it's not your calling. Like, I mean, you can dabble in music, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, everybody can write songs and make music, but if you're actually going to be a full-time musician and block everything else out, it has to be your calling, or you would never, you'd never be able to put up with all the stuff you have to do, and because it's a lot of work. And I always say, when I get asked advice, like for young people, and they'll always say, do you have any advice for young people? I'm just like, do you like work? Because this is like a lot of work. And if you like work, you're gonna do okay, because it's nothing but work. I get up every day and I work on my business, and every year it can actually get more challenging. And I practice my guitar every day. Like, I mean, I'm 55, I've been playing since I was 13. I still practice every day. Like, it doesn't stop. So don't expect, like, hey, it's going to get easy. It's probably not. But if you like work, it's going to be okay. I really like what I do. I like to work, so.
Another thing that I tell people that, I get asked stuff too, and I wish I had done this sooner, but the sooner you can get to a place where you create, because when you write, I write books and stuff too, and I do music, and you want to think you're not doing it into the void. You're doing it because you want people to hear it, you want people to see it, but they might not. And that's the thing. When you can get to a place, like I am known for playing the bass on fucking We Got the Beat, in 1981. And I have done massive amounts of music since then that's way better, that's way cooler, tons, and I get no recognition. And somewhere in there, around 2005, I got to the point where it was enough that I was really fucking proud of myself. And when I make music and when I make a song, if nobody hears it, I hear it and I go, I fucking killed it. And I wish, and I get pleasure from it. Oh, it's like when you paint your house and you like sit in your bed and you go, I painted this room really good. It's like, if I could have gotten to that place sooner where I didn't need such validation, it's nice to get it. It's nice to be able to pay your bills with what you love doing, but you might not. So be proud when you do something, and that might be it, but hopefully not. And I also believe it's a numbers game. You write 20 songs, one's gonna be great. The rest will be good. If you are at a certain level, nothing will be mediocre, it'll all be good, but that great one, it's numbers. You just do it over and over. I'm a writer now, so I write 10 short stories, and it takes years, and one is one I would submit, one, no matter for all that effort.
I want to just add on to that. When I wrote my first album, I had like pie in the sky dreams, it's going to be a hit. But I also knew that I wasn't using my voice as authentically as I could. And I was putting a lot of success outside myself. And so that's the same thing that Kathy was saying. When I really had a nervous breakdown about it and I was like, this isn't happening, I quickly understood that I had to redefine success for myself. And for me, that meant writing an album from my heart that I could be proud of and I could listen back to and know that I was speaking truth and that it was true to me. And so I just completely redefined, and I said, that is success. I'm not going to say whether the album sells or gets out there or whatever it is, that's failure or success. And so you're able to determine it. So whether you have that support network or not, you're always going to have somebody that's like, what are you doing? And it's about coming back to yourself and being like, I know what success is, and I know it's being true to myself. And so I still can look back on that album from 2014 and know that it was from my heart and it was authentic and it led me in the right direction. So.
Yeah, and I would add to that, like balance. Like when I say be okay with it, just being proud, that's not negating, like everything I do, I think I'm gonna have a bestseller, I think I'm gonna have a top 10. That's what I go in hoping for. I just can't help it. I shoot for the top, and if I end up here, that's okay. Shoot for the top again. So I just wanted to add that on.
Yeah, good question. Yes, over here.
Hi. So I'm about to turn 60 in September. I wrote my first song when I was 50, and I don't have children. My songs are the closest thing that I have to my children. My question for you has to do with terror. My latest challenge for myself is when I'm terrified of something, that's a thing that I jump to do. And what I want is to shift from terror to gratitude. And I want it because, anything coming from fear, you're just going to be in this mindset of scarcity. And I want to be in abundance. Okay, so my question for you is, what makes that flip for you from terror to gratitude?
I touched on this earlier when I have stage fright, whenever I approach my shows, I'm like, is anyone going to be there? Am I going to make money? Am I going to screw up? But instead of thinking about all these terrible outcomes, like you said, gratitude. I'm grateful that I was given this gift as a vessel, like you were saying, the gratitude, and that's what switched it for me instantly last night, because I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety and depression, and I just realized that, and I'm getting help for it, and I'm getting therapy, and I'm getting a medication, but I'm also trying to talk myself down from the ledge, because I just get in these cycles. I have no idea why. I just, these negative thoughts just keep spiraling and spiraling and spiraling, and like what you said about gratitude, and that definitely switched the light on for me and made all the demons like cower and go away. But like, oh, gratitude, positivity, love, like you are special, put on here to be of service to people and touch people. This is your calling. So I think that switched it, the terror for me, and it's active. It is an active project, because I'm not always going to be confident. I'm not always going to be filled with light and be like, yes, I'm a vessel. It's an active practice I need every single day of my life. I can't slip up. So that's it for me.
I love that she used the word practice. Like for me, I literally have to train myself every single day, like taking a shower, brushing my teeth. I have to sit down and write things I'm grateful for every single day. And again, do it more often than I don't. And for me, it's just training my mind to go there instead. And if I do it every day, like songwriting, like whatever it is that you're doing all the time, that's what you're training yourself for. So I would say, yeah, just keep training yourself for those more positive mindsets.
Okay, anybody else?
Can I ask you something? Like when you say terror, what's the terror about? Like,
fucking up in front of people.
to who? Like, how?
You know, I'm a perfectionist, and so just, you know, a wrong note, you know. Before I performed in public for the first time, my roommate said, I was going to take a shower. My roommate said, sing in the shower, sing off key, and then get out of the shower and notice that you didn't die, you know. So I try to remember that. But I know that with live music, people aren't going to hear live music to hear perfection. They're there to get inspired, they're there to enjoy themselves, but they're there for a connection. And when I focus on that, then I'm unstoppable.
Hey, there you go.
So
That was the answer.
Answered your own question.
Okay, any other questions? Go, Jeannie.
I have a question. Amy, you mentioned this, that maybe you were just speaking, not in reality, but you said something about having a nervous breakdown at some point.
No, that was reality.
So my question is, and I think this, all of you are saying that it's a hard business, you'll hit roadblocks. What has been your hardest moment, and how did you pull yourself out of it? Because I think that could be helpful to people who are going to be struggling along the way.
One that I can think of in particular is I recorded a performance, and they came back to me and said, hey, we're going to have to re-record the vocals, and I took that to mean, you suck, your vocals are a nightmare and off key, right? And I listened back to it, and it you know, when you're listening to something recorded back, it's not live, it's always, you got to take it for what it is. And I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't have the mental training in place to deal with that, and I remember falling on the floor in front of my refrigerator, like crying and thinking I suck. And yet I still picked myself up, and I thought, well, here's a writing opportunity. So I wrote a song called Meltdown, and and you know what? I ended up writing something true. And so I think that it comes back to like how quickly you can pick yourself up. We're going to have down moments. We're human. I still do. But if you can get into those habits of, okay, how can I use this? How can I pick myself back up? And then use it to further your creativity and your creation. I think that that matters. So yeah, I mean, nervous breakdowns were for real for me. I had a lot of stories to overcome in my own head.
Anybody else?
I use songwriting has been my best friend and my best therapy. I mean, when I got divorced, you know, I was devastated, but I had a 7-year-old, and I just knew if mom was okay, she would be okay. And after she went to bed, I would go in my closet, and I was in a fetal position, sobbing, and this song In My Closet came out of that. And I have about 5 divorce songs that nobody will ever hear, especially my ex. He'd probably kill himself if he heard them. But they help get me through it. So songwriting for me is I mean, it's just like, you're like this, and yeah, you know, it's like it just takes me out of the pain and puts me in the creative process and in the moment, because a lot of pain is about the past or the future or what you're worried about, and the moment, which is what music has always been for me. When I play music, it doesn't matter if I'm in a rehearsal room, in a studio, on stage. When I'm playing music, I'm not in my head. I forget I'm a mom. I forget the cats. I forget the dog. I forget the bills. I forget everything. It all turns off, and it's the only thing I've ever found in my life where I'm completely present in that moment. So it's a lifesaver. It literally saves my life over and over.
Amen to that. Okay, any other questions? Well, one more question? No. Okay, so the benefit of talking last means I get the benefit of hearing everyone's input. So I'm going to sum up for myself what resonated the most from everything that's been said. There's a sociological concept called first, second, and third place. This isn't about trophies or ribbons. It's about physical places and metaphysical places. So first place is home, and for all of you, I hope that it is exactly what it's supposed to be, a safe place, a place where you're nurtured and home base, right? So that's first place. Second place is work, and that's wherever your vocation takes you, and it's where you're in a common goal with other people. Third place is this special place where there's this interconnectedness and a common goal, and this is what we created today. We created third place today, everybody in this room, and it's what's needed. And I thank you for your intentionality of coming here today, being open, asking questions, answering questions, and sort of riding this first wave with us together with Wavemakers. So we created the thing we needed, and women are gonna have to create it, fight for it, and maintain it. So I thank you all for your support. I encourage you to thank these amazing women and all of our panelists, so give us a big round of applause. This evening, just down the road at 115 East 5th, there will be a showcase of women performers over 40 this evening. Several of them are here right now. I'm one. Kate Howard is here. PJ Pullis, she was here, I lost her, as well as the amazing Shelley King. So if you can join us this evening, your ticket that you have on the back of your badge is your entrance to the showcase. We're going to continue to raise money for Herizon Music Foundation. And of course, want to thank our sponsors again, Austin PBS, the Clifford Antone Foundation, Herizon, True Skin, Austin Woman, all of the great partners that we've had with us today. Thank you so much. Please continue to follow Wavemakers. We're going to be doing some big stuff in 2024. So thank you all. Thank you, ladies.